Recorded June 17th, 2024. Good afternoon, Ray. Good afternoon, Rodney. How's everyone doing
Good
today?
afternoon. Good. I'm doing great. How's everyone else doing?
I mean, life is fair unless something bad happens to me first. Then it's not fair at all.
I think for at least one beginning of one show, we just keep doing that. I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, let's just
I'm
do
fine. How
that.
are
Yeah,
you?
I'll
Yeah.
build a
Wonder
chair.
how long we can keep that up. I bet
I
there's
love
a
a good
Guinness Book of World
trauma
Records.
I think Ray asked me something last week. She said, "You know what I'm talking about, right?" Oh, no, I think she said, "You know what I mean?" I'm like, "No, no, I don't know what you mean." I
And then
don't.
I said, my brother in the military has said to me on more than one occasion, "It's very similar to you, Ed." He's like, it really, I mean, you must know what you mean because you say it with such authority, but I don't, I don't think anybody else.
He
'Cause
has
I'm
more
just-
confidence than I don't even know what.
Yeah. Then bull have frogs. Hey, we do have a guest on. A partner that was on with us last year, so we're gonna make sure we were deciding whether to talk about what we did last week, some show notes at the beginning or the end. I sort of made a decision we'll do it right now and stay true to the thing. This builds discipline. I got a couple things you guys want to hear. Um, in the theme of the guest coming on to talk about their topic, I did get an email from Mr. Rodney Trent around Microsoft Security Partners and some Copilot for Security training. And so read through it, it's actually pretty decent in here. It seems to be that a lot of the partners don't have. They say they know they have directions, but sometimes they still ask, well, where do we get started? What do we do? So this is a great reference. Good. Shout out to Rod for putting this together. One of the creators of this content, one who just pasted. I don't know how to make friendly links come inside the show, so I put that there. So really good Microsoft Security Partner learning. That's one thing that I had. The other thing, I had six, but I keep it down to two. Um,
We can talk
this,
about it later.
yeah, this is a cool thing. You ever want to know what changes happen in your 365 tenant? You know, especially if you have multiple admins and people are doing stuff, and you don't want to have to or parse the audit logs and thing. What is cool too came out from a guy named John Selfie, and it's called the old 365 Drift or DSE or Design Configuration State. He just did DSE, but it's a drift tool. So I'll grab the link here. I'm once again not a friendly link, but it allows you to look at the metadata and you can see any changes that anyone made from the posture of your 365 to now. And you're looking at the metadata. I think you can do if you're in Linux, you can do a pretty command and format it right. I may give it a shot. I've seen some screenshots of it, so I'll post it here. And if you're inside of Azure or anything else, when you see, PowerShell came out with this years ago, DSC, Design State Configuration. This is sort of play on that. So it's a drift tool. It's not bad at all. It's open source. Give it a shot, and I'll put the rest of the things that I have. We'll put them in the show notes. So those are the two that I did this week. And personally, happy Father's Day to you, Rod, from yesterday.
Oh, thank you. Father's Day was awesome for me because I think I mentioned this last week, or at least I mentioned it in last week's newsletters, that I was in Amish country visiting my best friend for his birthday this past weekend. But on the way back, we stopped in Columbus, Ohio, where my youngest son is. So we had lunch. It was lunch with them. I can't remember all the meals I had in Amish country. It was all huge, carb loaded. I feel horrible. I'm going to have to detox for days. But anyway, the Amish can eat whatever they want because they're out in the fields all day long, sweating it off. And us more modern humans, I guess, we just sit at desks all day long. We have to force ourselves.
Yeah.
Modern humans.
We
Be careful who you call a modern human. I still walk on my knuckles, man. What's wrong with you?
Well,
yeah, and then we did,
hold that against you.
yeah, and then we got to say the very first Happy Father's Day to our co-host and friend Brody.
We did, yeah, over text.
Good text, of course.
Unfortunately, he'll never be able to use our gift to him. So.
Nah, we'll see him. We're not going to say whose idea this was, right? So we'll leave it there.
I looked. It's supposed to be applicable.
Where's your
any-
poker face? You should have used your poker face. Nobody would have ever known. Ever.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have said anything to
Hey,
anybody.
when we see him, he'll get to use it on us, and then I send him something else anyway, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Things happen. Yeah.
But that's awesome being a father for the first time. Brody, that's just exciting. That's good stuff.
That's good stuff. So, Ray, what about you?
Let's see. I celebrate. Well, again, happy Father's Day to you both. I celebrated my father, Michael Toro, and then my ex-husband, my co-parent, yesterday, and that was fun. My mom booked I don't know, this dance club brunch play at. It's they were playing disco jazz, Daz, right? And then there was some Luther Vandross, but then there was a lot of early aughts like dance hall music. And then my dad, he used to be a party animal, but he was kind of vibing, but it was just a very surreal experience to be there with my ex-husband, my sister, who's always on the prowl at pushing 60, my mom, who's this is amazing. I didn't know where to put myself, and I was this is my life now. So that was fun.
And here's the waitress. Ma'am, would you like your 10th mimosa?
Yes. I had one Bloody Mary, and I couldn't keep up with the rest of the crew, but somebody needed to be the adult in the situation, so I volunteered. So no,
good for you.
That was my Father's Day. Let's see, and then on Friday, my daughter had her little graduation step-up ceremony from pre-K to kindergarten. So
that's cool.
that was intense. A lot of emotionality for me. And then work stuff. And then when my professor reached out to me, and potentially we'll have a B-sides project in the works, but maybe for B-sides Philly in December. So we'll see how that evolves. So pretty exciting stuff.
Okay, all right. Well, without further ado, we'll for those who are listening to the show live, we'll may stay on after I guess leave, and we'll may talk about some things that we broke in the lab and share a few more things for the week. So we're just doing a little blended thing. But Rod, let's get our guest on. Let's not keep them back there waiting and eating up all the snacks in the green room.
Well, I also would like to bring them on because I have this question in my mind, which we'll get to eventually, about how the Oilers could win 8-2 one game and then still be a series. Anyway, welcome to Andrew and Kyle from Difenda. I don't know who drew the shortest straw, but who wants to go first and introduce themselves?
I can go first. Andrew Hodges, been with Difenda since around 2019. Have a background in, so been in information technology for about 25 years or so. Got into security in around 2012. My first foray introduction was through a fairly large scale PCI DSS kind of program, kind of development and execution, and have been in information security, cybersecurity ever since. And happy to talk about what I think is going to happen with that series there, Rod. And Ray, just real quick, I just want to know that brunch that you were at, so that was a brunch, and was there dancing? People were actually on the dance floor? I don't think I've ever seen that before.
They did not. I mean, they could. There was a dance floor inviting them, beckoning them forth, but most folks were just kind of vibing in their chair. And my mom just needed another Bellini to really get up. So thankfully, we managed her intake there, but it was dicey, to say the least.
Oh, I am intrigued, and I probably would have been hitting the dance floor at some point if I was there. So maybe next time.
I can't imagine dancing at brunch.
Yeah,
not something I want to participate in.
I always love a good dance moment. It's just with my parents there. I was, somebody needed to be the adult, and that's fine. But if they weren't there, would have been dancing the whole time. So there's that.
So Kyle and Andrew, what brings you to the show today? We do have the unique pleasure of listening from Difenda. Came on, gave us a good show last year for Partner Month, and you guys are back. So what's up this time?
Yeah, I think just here to kind of give an update on Difenda, start with a bit of a background, a bit of rehash there, and then We're looking to kind of get into some of the things that we're doing up to and including on the Copilot for security front. So really looking forward to getting into that.
Okay. All right.
Kyle, did you want to do a quick intro yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So Kyle Link, I've been with Difenda for 2.5 years now, I believe. So I currently am an architect here, so I build things. Before that, I was doing threat hunting, incident response, threat intelligence, and then sort of before that, I worked on a incident response team at a UK company. So I've sort of been around the clock and experienced some interesting breaches, interesting cases, and yeah, ready to talk about the war wounds.
Okay. Kyle, your microphone seems to be doing that 1980s fade in and fade out.
Oh,
So yeah.
Oh
you
no,
give me
it's microphone shaming.
let me turn it up. How are we doing now?
Happens every show. It's okay. I messed. Try it again, Kyle. I messed with your mic settings just a second.
Yeah, testing. We good now?
Yeah, sounds good.
Alrighty.
There we go.
All right. So, in the theme of Partner Month that we did in April, we did have a series of partners on that were talking about the Copilot for security offerings, and now you, Defenda, wants to come on and talk about how you guys are interacting with your current security solutions and offering now that you are starting to, integrate, or if you're not deeply integrating Copilot for security into the way you go about providing security services and value to your customers. So, hey, the floor is yours. Give us some goodness.
Yep, sure thing. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, one of the big things that we're still obviously kind of pushing and peddling is some of the fundamentals. Going back to why, so Defend has been around since 2008. We pivoted hard on the Microsoft front back in around 2019, late 2019, 2020. And the reason we did that, going back to, my background is running, developing and executing cyber programs. And one of the biggest challenges that I always had was, you go and buy best of breed technologies and trying to stitch everything together was always a big challenge. And most of the team ended up spending a lot of time just kind of building those integrations, supporting those best of breed technologies versus actually dealing with the outputs and securing the environment. And we saw, back then where Microsoft was going. And so we literally pivoted the whole organization. All we do is Microsoft security. We shed the rest of the technologies because we like being able to work with customers who are at various states and being able to start, where that customer is, taking a look at kind of their major risk profile, taking a look at, potentially specific technologies that are looking to sunset and replace leveraging their E5 license. But then we all know that security is a journey, right? There's no kind of start-stop project and now we're secure. And that's why we love the Microsoft security stack so much, is that we can kind of get our foothold in and evolve alongside the customer. And so those fundamentals for us, like Copilot is an amazing tool, and we're just kind of in the early days here. But you need the fundamentals, so we obviously kind of harp on that. But then we were part of the early access program, got in around late October, early November, and started to get our hands on the technology. And we're at first working with James Key and the rest of the crew and kind of nice cadence with them and providing feedback on a lot of the native features functions. And then the minute we were able to start to get into kind of more advanced, looking at kind of more custom prompts, prompt books, even plugin development started to kind of extend past some of those core features. And where we've kind of evolved to now, so there still is no MSSP model. So we cannot kind of acquire Copilot on behalf of a customer and operate our managed services using Copilot on behalf of that customer today. But what we've done is very similar to the minute it went GA. It wasn't just, hey, let's turn on all these SEUs and start going crazy with Copilot. We built out a bit of a model, and so it's all about kind of business case. And so the offering that we've got right now is working with our customers and really mining, taking a look at, so if it's an existing managed customer, potentially what are we escalating to you that you now need to kind of hop in and execute on, and maybe you're short on staff or it takes a long time for you to execute that process. And then we go and do a bit of an assessment to say, hey, is this a good use case for Copilot? and will help the customer actually document out all the steps that they take and basically build a business case. How much does it cost you to execute that process? Go and if needed, get into custom development, plugin development, prompt book development, run through the cycles, get it well oiled, and then baseline and benchmark at that point. Well, how many SEUs does it cost you now? How long does it take you to execute that? And so not only does, if we're successful, what ends up happening is Copilot is fully functional, up and running in their environment. They've got that first core use case that they can then build off of. But they've also got a bit of a financial, like a business case model that can be used subsequently to kind of say, hey, we've got another idea. Good, let's pull that in. Let's break that down. Let's dissect that. Let's build another business case. So then the folks who own the purse strings, like it should be very black and white, right? Like it should be hey, like this makes sense. We're going to save money by doing this. So that's the model. And we've actually got a good example of that, how we've done that internally here.
Well, and I like that a lot because I have to tell you, big discussion, few people last week in particular, because Copilot for Security sounds neat and all, and it is. It's cool, but it's not the tool for everything. And so your approach to this, to me, I think is super important because you are helping customers. They actually kind of need that guidance. They're like, we have this tool to do this already. Do we replace that with Copilot for Security? And it's absolutely not. You're just utilizing another tool. You still want to use the best tool for the job. A lot of customers are looking at it like, hey, we can use Copilot for Security for everything. It's going to do all the stuff. And it's
a lot
not.
of understanding like its limitations, right? And then
Yeah.
basically being able to implement something that's, of value. It's not just consuming money.
A lot of times I think that's where you want to start with a customer. This is what it can't do, right? So it kind of gives them a better perspective.
Yeah, you're supporting the technical needs of the business for sure and empowering them. But you're also building out that muscle and that awareness, that visibility and understanding for the decision makers. So that two-pronged approach, I think, is super crucial and powerful. And that's a differentiator because often intuitively folks might think, oh, we just need the technical augmentation, the technical lift. But if nobody understands the impact, then okay, that's not going to persist in the environment in the way that folks maybe had hoped, right? 'Cause the decision makers need to know what it's actually doing for the business and the organization quantifiably.
And a while ago, like Andrew asked me to sort of document how long stuff is taking us manually to do versus where we can implement, automation through AI or Copilot for Security or things like that to basically give like a better estimate of the cost, right? So if it took us 2 hours to do task X, what could we sort of, get that price down using Copilot for Security? So I think that was sort of a big driving factor in some of the work that we were doing.
Unmute, Ed.
You made an interesting point by saying that, hey, there's no MSSP model for this. So you're having to provide this innovation in consulting because majority, I won't say entirety of the compute and the knowledge and the data, I won't say mining because that has a bad moniker these days, is occurring in the customer's environment. So you're asked to come in and sort of, for lack of a better word, look over the customer's shoulder because there is no lighthousing just yet, and there is no API exposure to it yet to be able to do it. And Rod, if I'm saying anything, incorrect because I'm not up on the timelines.
You're absolutely correct. That does not exist.
Yeah. So you're having to come in and provide that true consultant. Hey, do this, Mr. Customer, so and so, and they have to trust you because you're playing on their dime of a sort. And I don't say playing, you're consulting on their dime. How is that a challenge? Have you had to change the way your muscles work, considering that when you are MSSP, you onboard someone, you do all the contributor type integrations that you can come in and do things. Now, I've yet to hear too many customers say, yeah, I just gave my partner unfettered access and gave them the role to be able to go burn money. I haven't really heard that in a while yet. So how's this changing your muscles to be able to come in and do this?
Yeah, so I mean, if it kind of a few fold there, right? So onset of an engagement, like we are running Copilot in our environment. So depending on the use case that we're picking for that specific engagement, there may be some modeling and things that we can do in our environment first, because that's one of the biggest challenges too. Is that the dev cycle is a little bit different than traditional dev. back in the not back in the day, today, like when you do traditional development, it's like you go and you spec something out, you can go in dev, you can have a dev environment. And generally speaking, you can do that for a relatively inexpensive cost. But now when you're developing and you're burning SEUs and you're trying different prompts and prompt books, you're burning SEUs. Like there's no like development unit for SEU dev. So there we want to try to kind of maybe take some of that burden on ourselves. And then the second big lever that we've got, to be quite honest with you, is we work closely with our a lot of the sales folks on the Microsoft side to kind of look at things like ESA funding and other funding vehicles to try to, we're going to get this engagement off the ground. We think it's going to be X number of SEUs. Can we get SEU credits to cover that cost? Is there additional funding that we can kind of help offset those costs to ideally get to that point where we show the value and then we kind of click it on and now the customer's kind of paying for that, right? So those are the vehicles that we're using today. Over time that might change, but that's what we're doing today.
Unmute again.
I'm doing this thing all on mute because I'm hearing myself sniffle with a cold. You're right with that. So you have and I won't say an angle. You have an engagement model with your Copilot for security. I want to hear it. When we had all the partners on, I know some are listening from the show. Only one had a Copilot for security offering on their actual website main thing, and of the one that did, were they really MSSP sort of? Not really. What is your offering right now in that? Is it a service offering? Is it a technology integration offering? Just want to hear how Defender's taking this on, because we're starting to hear partners saying that full steam ahead, innovation, stay in front, so and so. But it seems to me everybody's still at the starting line waiting for the pistol to go off. Everybody's scared to take off right quick.
Yeah, so we've got it. It's an advisory engagement, and like I said, in a lot of cases, we can work with Microsoft to get some funding there. And it's an official engagement. It's up on our website. It's up in the marketplace. It's there, and we are full steam ahead.
Do you find yourself getting a lot of inquiries? Can you see that in the marketplace when someone is window shopping? When they click on, you get a invitation to. Hey, send me some info about your stuff, because I got a friend of mine who's a customer, and they've gone to the marketplace. They look at everybody and they're just clicking for the info to see. And it seems like the minute they click on it, that partner calls right away, because they want to come in and be the first person to sort of engage with this person on this sort of emerging technology. Can you see those type of inquiries?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I would assume so. I do know too that we've got some mechanism that kind of links back to our site so that it kind of flows through sales. But yeah, like, I assume that somebody on our side is kind of watching for those direct inquiries right to the marketplace. But yeah, like I know that is flowing through, because we are getting pulled into on the tech side. We're getting pulled in some of those sales conversations.
You talked about funding, and there are numerous partner funding models that Microsoft has done if you know how to get through the minutia, right? Big shout out to Matt Solzman and the Partner Masters. If you're a partner and you find yourself struggling with lines, reach out to the Partner Masters, Matt Solzman, friend of the show. So, if you can't disclose this, then don't. But what is that compensation, or what does that billing model look like for a customer? Is it TME, time and materials? You come in. I can imagine writing the statement of work. So this must be part of your offering when you come in and you say, hey, we're going to evaluate this, advise you on this, help you configure this, or if you already have Copilot for security deployed with some form of prompt repository, plug-in wizardry or widgets, do you advise on what the customer already has there, and it's all documented? Well, it's in your offering. There you go.
Yep. Yeah. So that's it. I mean, it's we've kind of got our stock kind of model, all very much kind of templated out, and then depending on once we engage with the customer and kind of get into the weeds, the way the engagement works is we don't necessarily want to kind of in the pre-sale cycle sit there and spin on, okay, what's the best use case? What we want to do is kind of during the engagement, the start of the engagement is really about taking a look at the top 5, 6, 7 challenges, and then kind of collectively kind of working through that to figure out, well, what is the best what is the top one? Like, let's not worry about boiling the ocean. Let's not go and try to kind of lay 5 things in here. Let's pick that top one that we think is going to bring the biggest bang for the buck. Then let's kind of zone into that and let's go. Right. So then that next step is, okay, let's talk through. We've got a fairly simple model to go and capture. Okay, in that process today, what are the 10, 20 steps that are taken? Who executes that? We got a bit of a model to kind of come up with an ultimate cost for executing that. How often is that executed? Right. And that's kind of that starting point. And then we go and do our work. And then once that work is fully fleshed out, we have a good handle on how many SEUs that's going to take to run, what the frequency is and whatnot. We've kind of got part B, and then we can kind of lay that business case out. That's the model.
One last question, and I know my co-host has some questions. What are you seeing out there when you show up on site and boots on the street? What do you most see, without divulging customer name or whatever? When you go to these customers, what seems to be the uniform and the commonality that all the customers seem to be doing this? What do you see is like, this is common, most of them are doing this, kicking their tires? Or you go to a customer and you go, wow, that's cool. We didn't think of that, because customers where the innovations are going to come from, right? They're the ones going to want to break it. So give me a cool thing and give me a common thing.
So I mean, the common thing really is, I would say, still, it's kind of 2 parts of that, right? So part one is, it's a Copilot's going to do a lot for us / kind of extended into all kinds of things that Copilot cannot do yet. That's still probably 50-60% of the conversations. I would say the other is more like kind of using some of the kind of key common feature sets, right? They're kind of running a lot of the native prompts, prompt books, leveraging native plugins. I think that's one of the big things is I remember sitting through a session, I think it was in Toronto here, like at the Microsoft head office in Toronto here. And I forget who was speaking, but they basically just said, like, listen, with this thing, you really have to take a step back and just open the brain, like let it go wild a little bit, because there's specific challenges and use cases there that we haven't necessarily made that connection with. We don't have stock content for it yet. And that's really where we're trying to, that's why we want to go into this part of these engagements and have these conversations with customers and talk about their top 5 challenges to start. Like that's a starting point. I mean, one of the best examples right now that we can talk about that's actually operational and in production is, maybe I'll have Kyle just speak about high level, how we're using it internally today, and some of the benefits that we've seen with what we've actually developed and implemented, or one of the use cases that we've developed and implemented. Kyle, did you want to just kind of describe that maybe at a high level?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not a problem. I think like just sort of before we get into that, I think like one of the common sort of things that our customers are sort of concerned with is, like phishing. It's end user awareness. Sort of how can we leverage Copilot guided responses to sort of coach our end users into identifying, phishing emails. So it's not just constantly reporting marketing or spam to sort of security teams. So I think like that's a pretty common sort of scenario for most of our customers. Something internally that we worked on was just sort of taking, the mass amounts of threat intelligence that, different providers are sort of sending out and aggregating that into sort of a more digestible format. So, I mean, like a lot of these reports are excellent. They're very verbose, very wordy, super long, but there's, only 8 hours in a day. So I can't read all these reports every day. So we're trying to figure out if there's a way to, aggregate that data into an actionable sort of format for us so that we can leverage that in our threat hunting practice. So that was sort of our first use case that we took. So like I mentioned earlier, we sort of took that and got an understanding of, how long would this take us manually to do? And then how long, would it take us to sort of perform that development and then have Copilot sort of work as our assistant in sort of planning these threat hunts.
Yeah. The being able to do mass about of dissimilar functions and be able to aggregate it there, and especially if the Microsoft One SOC and a one XDR thing is still played. There's still so much to do. I was in the portal today, like, when did they add that? right? I'm 3 days behind in work at the place, right? So you can't see it. Um, well, let me ask a different question. As you guys are consuming it and playing with it in house, give me a wish list. What do you want? Get one thing, and that'd be. We'll move it to the
Only
top
one?
of the ring, and we'll say, hey, we took your feedback, and you asked nicely, so we're going to go ahead and do this first. What would you want?
I can guess. Go ahead.
I would say I feel like out of box answer would be more logging, but my
Oh.
number one would be multi-skill prompting. Would be like skill chaining. Like if I'm looking at an external URL and I'm using fetch URL skill, can I also have it analyze the CVEs? Right. I can't do that right now, built in with the native experience. I can do that with like a logic app.
Yeah.
Using like parallel prompts. But what if I could do that in the native experience? That'd be much better.
I bet I know somebody that could. Shout out to Mr. Disney. Could probably do it, right? And do that. Okay, so Kyle's gave his wish list. Andrew, what about you?
I'm excited, honestly. Like, so my background is more kind of at the program level, kind of GRC programs. And based on where we're looking to take our services as well, like I'm very interested to see audits. Like I still work with a lot of customers, kind of more so through like a VCSO type capacity, and just the pain and agony going through audits and compliance. And yeah, we've got some tools. We've got things like Compliance Manager and other tooling that we can use to kind of track this stuff. But I'm very excited at that point where we start kind of getting those features, functions in Copilot, where we can really start to kind of cut down on that audit and compliance overhead in a very meaningful way. That I think will cross a bit of a new threshold there, because I mean that's such a time suck, right? So we're really looking forward to that further down the path.
So based on, and just kind of, I shared some links to your marketplace page and also that brief. I think that's awesome. I think people are going to eat that up. But was that developed based on your experience of that Microsoft EAP program, or customers that you worked with as part of that EAP program? That's super important to me. James Key was on during our partner month, our Copilot for Security month, and so that's super important to me because we're working on some other initiatives. And was that developed because of that? Is that what you saw working with those EAP customers, that was a necessity?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was through discussions and working with customers, but then also figuring out how we're going to operationalize this thing ourselves, right? Like it's kind of that two-pronged thing that ultimately kind of led to us building this offering. And then also just understanding that, I mean, every conversation that we get into with customers, like we serve a lot of the SMC space. We do have some kind of, on the cusp of kind of that enterprise side. Everybody cares about budget. Every single person. Like one of the big things that we are constantly talking to customers about is how do we optimize Sentinel costs, right? So that cost piece is so important. So we're like, okay, like the answer isn't to just go and slam this in and turn it on and say, hey, you need all these SEUs. And we got to help them build the business case to then be able to justify it, to then make this sticky, to then be able to stack on. That's how we got to it.
Well, and I think another piece of that too, I think for the longest time, we all of our shows kind of eventually we talk about Copilot for Security because that is like the big thing. But Difenda does so much more, and I think if you want to talk about that a little bit too, because there's the Copilot for Security piece, which we talk about every episode. We really do. But Difenda does a whole lot more, and I think it's probably that basis of expertise that led you to say, okay, this is where we can do this for customers with Copilot for Security because we've been successful doing it for these other things. You mentioned Sentinel as part of that. So if you could go into detail about that, I mean, highlight Difenda here, not just the Copilot for Security piece, because, even though I'm a AI nut at this point, I still want to know about Difenda.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like I was kind of mentioning kind of in the intro there, we jumped into the Microsoft security with 2 feet because we truly think it is the only real kind of end-to-end platform that helps customers have, it doesn't really matter where do you start. I've got a massive cloud footprint. Good, start with Defender for Cloud. We got some customers, hey, we don't have good coverage on the OT side. let's start getting Defender for IoT deployed in our plants and start there, and then we can work backwards into IT, right? Like it's just there's no really other offering out there full stack that covers all of these different vectors and platforms that ultimately need to be secured. So that's why we jumped into this. Like one of the things that we really like to do is we've got this offering called the end-to-end roadmap. And it's all Microsoft security. And what we'll do is we've got a bit of a process where we'll work with customers through workshops to try to mine data, understand where their big gaps are, understand where maybe they have security technologies that are coming up for renewals and whatnot. And we will then take a look at the broad spectrum of Microsoft solutions, pick a starting point, and then kind of paint the map so that they know how to kind of evolve. Because again, it's not, hey, we're just going to slam in Microsoft security and now you're secure. Like it takes time, and you've got to let things soak, and you've got to give the operational people time to get their heads wrapped around things. And it's a total journey. And even when you're done, you're not done, right? Yeah. And so this is what we do. This is what we do, and we can implement all of the different, kind of bells and whistles. And our guiding principle here is truly to help customers kind of get to that core area protection, then to kind of stay on top of it on an ongoing basis.
Yeah,
that's extraordinary, Andrew. Because that is a killer. Like I've been on the other side of the customer equation. Like there is just no plug and play, and voila, you're done. Everybody gives themselves a round of applause. What is your secret to making that work? What is the magic? Right, like of that customer engagement and making sure that they're set up for success and that they're positioned to withstand kind of the internal friction, right? That change management piece, which is such a hurdle, and that is an understatement. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so it starts with our people first and foremost, right? So just making sure that we've got it's one thing to have qualified people who understand how to implement solutions, but you've got to have people that also have empathy and other kind of skill sets that can then read the room a little bit and help that customer depending on kind of what their challenge looks like. How do we actually get buy-in and how do we get that first product kind of deployed? When we get to a point where in some cases we'll do a lot of workshops like the Microsoft workshops. We do different things to kind of get the foot in the door. Once the foot is in the door and kind of leading up to managed. On the managed side, we have a bit of it's kind of white glove service. Like we've got our technical account management team that gets attached to a customer, so they start to build that rapport. So again, it goes back to kind of people and building rapport and building an understanding, because every customer is different. You've got different technologies, you've got different personalities, you've got different people, and that's the responsibility of that technical account management team. But then the other view that we take is it's the technology side. So we have what we call our Difenda Shield, and the Difenda Shield is really a suite of different components that help customers. It's like an overlay on top of the Microsoft security stack to truly operationalize and start to kind of get that visibility. And again, it's all based on Microsoft tech. So we're leveraging Azure automation. We're leveraging backend, Azure data services, Power BI, those types of features, functions to really, we've got some customers who have nothing. Like they've got literally EDR and a firewall, and we'll drop our services in. Now they've got cyber analytics. They've got a 24/7 MXDR service, SOC services. We're hunting. We're strapping on a remote incident response retainer on top of that. So we can take customers pretty far down a path just through onboarding. And then from there, it's through the visibility that we're getting through the SOC, ongoing discussions, control posture visibility. We're able to kind of incrementally say, hey, listen, like here, this is where you're at in your part of the journey. You really have to go focus on conditional access policies. They're not strong. And we can help you there. Let's parachute in. Let's have a small little engagement. Let's get you tuned up, get that working. Let's grab the next piece, right? So it's a very iterative process, and it's cheesy, but it is. It's people, process, and technologies that we use to power that.
Edward's on mute again.
Yeah, I think.
I feel bad, Edward. I got chronic sinusitis, so I get the sniffles all the time. I should be probably muting myself as well.
Yeah, I don't want to be rude today. So we've asked this to other partners, and I like what Ross said. Let's get back to the nitty gritty about what Defender is, because you guys got a lot of offerings, and they're pretty well written out inside the marketplace, right? So it speaks of experience, some sustainability, longevity, and it's pretty easy to follow too. What I like about it also showed the pricing on it for that, which some of them don't. I think that may be a requirement now that you have to list the pricing inside of that. I'm not sure yet. What you're saying that the core of the business is still the core of the business that drives this, because everybody's not going to develop that. How do you go about staying not bleeding edge, but making sure that you don't neglect something that you never know when they'll finally pull the throttle back and it'll take off? And I'm talking about Copilot, and still stay your base to get it down, because some customers are feeling a little intimidated. I heard one of them saying, well, everybody's saying all this AI stuff, like I got to do it. Do I have to do it, Ed? I'm like, you don't have to do anything, right? What I'm saying is evaluate it, and you may have to get someone to evaluate your security partners, right? You can't trust their gospel. You have to get someone who's outside of this to be able to come in and do it. So how do you stay, innovative against the competition? Because I think I see somebody from Bulletproof in the chat right here listening right now. Absolutely, I do.
It's tricky. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because we all attend a lot of the same events and whatnot, and so it's kind of like a frenemy thing, right? Like I've got lots of contacts and friends that I've met over the course of time here that kind of work at partners, different partners, and we will share a certain amount of information. Other pieces of information we won't share. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's easy, right? Like staying relevant and being innovative is not an easy thing. And then on top of that all, and I know that you guys can appreciate this, is just staying on top of all of the emerging things that Microsoft is releasing across all of the different kind of components, because Microsoft security isn't one thing. Microsoft security is many different products and features, functions underneath that. So the way we've done that is we've got these mini pods of folks that are aligned with different products, and we've got good rapport with a lot of the product people, and then we're always kind of on the hunt and always trying to make new connections and stay close to kind of what's coming down the pipe. And then the minute something is like, okay, this looks like something that we could maybe either integrate into existing service or maybe spin up a new offering around. It is like, it's kind of that little tiger team mentality where we go and we kind of carve out that team and, hey, go away and prototype and play and come back. And, in some cases it's, this looks wonderful, but it's either not ready yet or not going to work. Or in a lot of cases it's, hey, there's something here. How do we integrate this? We've got a better sense now. Let's go and double down on it. And kind of work towards that full blown kind of productionization of that specific feature.
We'll see how long it takes him to figure it out this time.
I should
I'll
just
figure
hold
it
it
out.
out.
Something's going on with this stupid thing, man.
Yeah, it probably is. You need to use the Yeti that you have. I am going to have to come to your house and set that up for you, I think.
It's sitting right there looking at me.
I know.
And daring me to set it up. So maybe I'll do it this week. We'll see what's going on.
All
right. And so you're a Canadian company. Woo-hoo.
Yep.
How is the adoption any different? Do you find the adoption a little different from some of your American-based customers versus Canadian customers?
We play both. We service the North American market, so we've got, I think the split is about 50-50. And I don't know. Like, I think it's more on it's not necessarily, Canadian market versus US market. It really, it depends on the customer. You know what I mean? And some customers are a little bit more kind of willing and like kind of aggressive and want to kind of move, and other customers are a little bit more, they want to be a little bit more like steady and I don't want to say risk adverse, right? It's just they want to take it a little bit slower, and so that's where a lot of cases we'll leverage things like workshops and whatnot to actually go in and prove out a concept, kind of start with that initial small proof of value, show the value, and then kind of scale from there. And so I wouldn't say it's necessarily a Canada-US thing. I think it depends on the customer more so.
I'm going to ask a question, but I need to ask Rod the question. And shame on me for not knowing the answer to this, Rod. It doesn't matter how you procure an SEU. It doesn't have to be across the EA. It could just be a Azure subscription with attached American
Yeah.
Express Black Card, right? Doesn't matter.
You can do it through the portal, either the Azure portal or security copilot.microsoft.com. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I want this question with that is,
Well, and to qualify that, anyone with appropriate rights to the Azure portal can do that. If your users have rights that are access rights that they should not have, they could spin up an SCU and cost your company money.
well, I wasn't talking about access to the portal. I'm talking about procurement of buying the actual SEU to burn, right? So here's where I'm going with that question. You mentioned, Andrew, that you guys service a lot of SMC. What is that adoption like, right? Because it made it seem like Copilot for security, especially, was an enterprise thing. Now, the Copilot for 365, I'm starting to see a lot of people brag about it. Like, man, this stuff is good. You know, I'm buying this and using this. But when you see CfS, I think it's implied that it's an enterprise consumption product. Are you finding SMC individuals? And I know there's some SMC companies that are labeled that way that are absolutely large. I used to cover it. I'm like, how are you not enterprise? But they aren't. So, but let's talk about true SMC, SMB. What is that adoption looking like, especially when you tell them they have to come in and do this thing and buy it this way, and this is a monthly cost?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that's another kind of reason why we're having some success and traction with the conversations that we're having using that business case model, right? Like I think it's both sides. It's enterprise and SMC, but SMC specifically, it's not, hey, let's just kind of turn this on and start burning SEUs. It's like, let's go in this in a very mindful way. Let's talk about your top use case and let's start there and let's show a business case. Because then you're demonstrating that you're actually saving money. You're doing something more efficiently, and you're ultimately kind of saving money. So it's a lot easier a discussion than, hey, let's just turn on a bunch of SEUs and start burning money.
Kyle said he likes to build things. He's an architect, right? Kyle, how are you building out the education for these customers? Because they're burned out going to the Microsoft site because they believe that, man, this is the Kool-Aid maker. Let me go talk to somebody who has my back. How are you educating these customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think flashing new tools in people's face, they always want to sort of go down that. So I think it's, a lot of people have these pipe dreams or these sort of ideas around implementing AI where it shouldn't be implemented. And they're sort of missing key important sections.
Ray had a light bulb go off.
Yeah, well, tell me more about what's the biggest misconception that you've had to kind of demystify for folks. Like, that's actually not, what's even possible at this point right now, and let's kind of keep our heads focused. Like, tell me something interesting in that space.
I think the whole misconception around guided responses is gonna either close an alert for companies is something that kind of people need to be woken up to. Like, a lot of this stuff is just to guide an analyst, maybe less senior analyst, into sort of investigating specific leads where they might not. So I think there's a lot of misconception around, can this just do my team's job sort of thing? And maybe eventually it can. I think we're sort of a long ways away from that, but I think that's sort of something that we have to keep kind of pulling our customers out of holes in relation to.
Yeah,
it's that, and Copilot is going to replace all my other security tools. Yeah. I think that's the second one.
Yeah, very true.
Automation, and then replacing all my security tools, and then replacing my team.
Yeah, it's really empowerment, not replacement, right? It's the augmentation. It's not an
assistant, right? It's not.
It's a co-pilot.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a co-pilot.
It's supposed to be your
not autopilot.
Yeah, not autopilot. Copilot's not autopilot.
Yeah.
And if it was autopilot, I can tell you which manufacturer is using it. But I'll leave that alone too. So what's in the future for Difenda? Here we go. Microsoft Copilot, for those who are in the live stream, Microsoft Copilot for security adoption, 6 to 8 week engagement. I like this. It doesn't seem like it's one of those sprints. It's a 1 week you get in and you blast through it and you leave the customer being confused.
Yeah.
And customers have egos. They don't like to make it be look dumb. You'll never hear from them again. Right. And so you give it 68 weeks and it seems like, hey man, this is a partnership. We're in this. You probably have some like lay period, week 4, take a week off, generate a bunch of questions, come back week 5 through 8. Let's keep going, right? And do it that way. So I like the way you guys have this offering where people are like, well, we're going to have a Copilot deep dive in 7 days.
Yeah.
No.
Well, here's the other thing I love about this. They actually have something on their website about this offering. A lot of and this is what really struck me when we were doing our Copilot for Security Month, was I checked Difenda site. Unfortunately, we weren't on the month that we did Copilot for Security. That's why I wanted to invite you, because you have it on your website. You're like, yeah, we're proud of this thing. We have something that we can offer our customers. And I think that's super important.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our partners, this is no shade to them. We asked the question. We said, we're going to ask you the hard question. Why is it not on your site? And then everybody, hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. You want to do the WD frog here. Like, okay, you don't have it, and so that's fine. But this here says, hey, we have a structured plan right here. This is not a cram session. This is the minimum. And you gave a range, 6 to 8 weeks, right? It may be 8 and it may be 6.
It's the people piece where you have to navigate a lot of politics, and that's I mean that in neutral sense, right? But you're going to have folks that are resistant to the idea. They have a lot of legacy tech. They maybe, to your point, where there's just hesitation because of how it reflects on their kind of how they've shown up in their role and the implications of that. So kudos to you, Andrew and Kyle, for having and Difenda all up, just because it's the people engagement that's really going to drive any technological revamping or overhaul. Like they are front and center, so you need to start there. And it's not 7 days, we'll pop in and then we're like Mary Poppins and then they're all good to go. It is not that. Again,
give us 180 SUs. We'll do it in 7 days.
Yeah, we do it.
A fleet of 50 people, and we'll just hammer it every hour.
Well, we're almost going to be at the show. We're going to be more diligent going forward to end on time. But I want to ask one more question to Difenda here, and maybe we'll get information. I was just going to look at the marketplace. I see all of your offerings, but I guess when you start to engage a customer who's interested, you send them a prep list. That 6 to 8 weeks have to include, have this ready for us when we get there, or do you say you don't have to do anything? Just wait till we get there if you want to do it, because sometimes the customer may have already, provisioned an SEU, say, okay, we ready. Is that part of the offering, saying, hey, we can start at ground zero where you've not done it at all, or you sort of played around with it? Which can you do both? That's the
good other way. Yeah, I mean, the assumption is that they haven't done anything. And by the time we leave, just going back to like our whole model, and this isn't just for Copilot, like anytime we work with customers, like we do a lot of, it takes a bit more time, but it's joint. Like we don't want to go off in isolation and drop something in and then walk away and say, there you go. And so by the time we're done, when you're talking about this engagement, if the customer has done nothing, we want to, by the end of the engagement, Copilot's implemented, we've documented the installation. We've even worked with them to install it. We've shown them where to go, even look for like billing. By the time we're done, like they understand it all, and it's them that's presenting the business case. It's them. They are the ones that are executing the prompt book, as an example, that we've left them with to kind of execute this task. And they've been trained on it. They understand it all. That's the model. And if they've already deployed SEUs and they've been playing around with maybe some of the kind of stock content, that's fine too. But our assumption is that the customer hasn't done anything yet. The only thing that we would ask a customer kind of, as we're working through that kind of sales cycle, is give it some thought. Like, kind of what are those top 5, 6, 7 pain points? And if they still haven't thought about that when we kick off the engagement, we'll talk through that and try to kind of get those documented and nailed down and get into it.
Yeah, that's very good. That's a good approach in my opinion to be able to look at it that way. I had one more question here. I can't even read my own handwriting, so I'll leave it as that.
We do have an audience question real quick there. They're curious if this offering is just for your customers or would it be also for a partner resale? I can see kind of that knowledge share. That might be a huge market or opportunity since you guys have put this together already. So
yeah, for sure, open to that type of arrangement as well. So I don't know if you guys can connect us with that individual, but would be happy to connect on that front as well.
My last question is it true that the sponsors were so mad that the Panthers were going to sweep the series that they requested they hold back and let the Oilers win one?
So here's the thing. I mean, if you go back a few years, that was kind of the MO of the Oilers, right? They would win one or they would lose, and then they would go and blow teams out by 7 or 8 goals. I mean, here's the thing. I think the Florida Panthers are the most quintessential playoff team in a long time. Like they're just constructed to win the Stanley Cup. But I mean, I'm dying for a Canadian team. Please, it's been so long.
I stopped watching the other night after it was 6-2 something. I'm like, there's no way. It was like third period. And like the last time anyone has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit was, I think it was like 1942. I forget the team. But
yeah, it was a long time ago, and it's only happened, I think, like once.
You run out of goaltending. Even if you got the hot hand, you run out of goaltending, right? Yeah. And the Panthers, when these folks, they got weaknesses, but their weaknesses, you can expose them in the regular season, and certain teams they don't play well against. I think Edmonton just ran up against Buzzsaw a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, he's phenomenal, that guy. And I mean, he's had his moments where he's kind of gone dark a little bit as well, but like, I don't know. Bobrovsky to me he plays like a playoff goaltender. He's just all over the net. It's just like, there's a hole there. 1 second, no, the next second there's not. And Kyle was actually a goalie back in the day, so he could probably appreciate Bob's play.
Oh yeah,
and he's not that big. And people were saying was gears oversized because he's so small and these things. So they're measuring his leg protection and everything. Like, no, of course this is legitimate, man. This is NHL. He's just. You're right. He just sort of anticipates where he thinks you're going to shoot that puck, and he's there. Yeah. And he's not a big dude at all. But hey, thanks for coming on the show, coming back to represent that. Rod, thanks for getting them back on. It sounds like you guys are talking with a bunch of confidence and not a bunch of marketing flair about, hey, this is a slow and steady wins the race, and we're going to do it this way. And I think it's probably in addition to your enterprise customers, you're having to address a lot of the SMB, SMC, and niche customers who say, "Hey, I ain't got money to burn, man. Just to experiment, we need to have a definitive thing, especially if I'm a small shop and I got to go talk to my boss to say, hey, this is what we need to do, right? And this is a partner I believe they can get us there, because everybody has that FOMO, fear of missing out corporately. You don't want to be the corporation that's not using AI, right? So FOMO.
Is that trademarked?
It is. We do so much trademarking. We go by right, and I come with ideas. We write it down. Yeah. Right.
Every time we come up with something, he goes and buys the domain name. So it just, it doesn't exist anymore right now.
Yeah, I might buy the internet.com. So how that goes. Well, Kyle, thanks for coming on the show. Andrew, thank you. We're gonna keep an eye on it. We put you a little bookmark, and I go through. And I look at all the partners who come on to talk about they got CfS, and I'll just look down and I'll just see what they're advancing on, right? And if you guys have any innovation, anything you want to share, just give us enough notice. We're getting booked up fast, and we got a couple more partners who want to come on and talk about their wares in CfS, right? So we'll go from there. So everyone, thanks for doing on the show. We're 3 minutes over. We apologize for it. Next week on a Monday, we'll do it again.
Cribble. Oh, Cribble. Hey Kyle, you need to join us. I know you would love Cribble since you're a logger. So
all right,
yeah,
I'll tune in.
If you didn't log it, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
Right. Unless it was in your environment, then you have no logs, right? Because I've timestamped all the logs. I timestamped them all.
If it's not UTC, it's wrong.
Yeah, that's right. If it's not UTC, you're wrong. Don't be wrong. Be right. All right, everyone. Same bat time, same bat channel next week. Peace. Peace.
next week.
All right,
Thanks,
Thank
folks. Appreciate it.